Do ghosts really exist? Are we alone? Is there life after death? Find another.
It looks like a giant ape with a man's face.
We've done some testing to determine if it is a synthesizer or not.
Just starting to come at me.
Hey folks, this is Sean Graham with Chasing the Truth, straight from the heart of the Appalachian Mountains in southwest Virginia, dovetailed with the Kentucky and Tennessee borders. I bring you Chasing the Truth on the Dark Waters Radio Network. Go to IamDarkWaters.com and subscribe to get the awesome email alerts that allow you to be up to date on the new content and live shows in real time. So go over to IamDarkWaters.com. Plus, there's a new feature at the website. Dark Waters has a new chat room. So go over to IamDarkWaters.com so you can join in with the immersive entertainment from Chasing the Truth on Dark Waters Radio Network. Only way to get these real-time email alerts is go over to the website. I've said it enough. IamDarkWaters.com. Now, today, I'm going to share with you a open lines live radio chat that I had. And it was a little bit of a slow night. Won't lie to you. Up until a gentleman called. His name's Connor. Now, folks, if you've ever listened to any of Dark Waters tell about certain ghost stories, certain Dogman stories and whatnot, some of those stories came directly from the testimony that this particular fellow has given to Dark Waters and myself, and now to the world, because he called in live on my show on Chasing the Truth. This fellow's name is Connor, and he has an extraordinary tales to tell about Dogman and a particular ghost encounter that he had. But wow. So what I want to do is just let you just dive into the call that I recorded with this fellow on, I think, April the 16th, if I remember correctly. So folks, enjoy Chasing the Truth. Hey, welcome to Chasing the Truth. This is Sean. Who am I talking to?
Hey, this is Connor.
Hey. What's going on, Tom?
Not a whole lot. Was just enjoying the show.
Oh, great. What's going on, man? I heard you. Man, this fella right here has got some stories.
Kind of quiet here lately. I hadn't had a whole lot of stuff going on. You know.
Connor, he and I have talked on the phone several times. He's told me some stuff that just blows the top of my mind off. Yeah, well, he called me the other day. I asked him to give me a call. He had a new update on what's going on. He was about ready to tell me a ghost story, and then something happened to our connection, and it was late at night. We'd been on the phone for a while.
Well, you want to hear the ghost story?
Yeah, buddy. Let's hear that rascal.
Well, that's the only ghost I ever seen. I was about 13, and me and my buddy went down there and hang out with some older kids, and they was playing basketball and stuff, and my uncle had told me about this, cemetery and not to go up there. So I was asking them what the deal was with it, and they was like, well, it's haunted. It's a woman that's, the story was there was a guy that he had raped this woman back years ago, and my granddaddy was part of the ones that hung him, and he had killed her, and so they was like, well, y'all don't want to go up there, and they kept messing with us about it, and y'all scared to go up there, and this and that. So we, you know how little kids get egged on, and we went up there at night, and the cemetery, it's a really old church that hadn't been in use in years.
Yeah.
And old rock foundation, and iron spooky looking gate around it. the cemetery is actually up in the holler behind it, and it kind of goes up and kind of curves around. And we got about halfway up that holler, and there's a little bit of moonlight and a little bit of light off back of the church. And so you can see a little bit, to get around.
Yeah.
And we sat there, and this fog come down through the cemetery. And it was like a deep, thick fog. It just started just easing down slowly through. Well, once it got we then went up and sat on the bank about halfway down the cemetery, so we could kind of get a view of all of it since it was curved. And the fog started kind of like swirling.
All right.
And it was swirling kind of in opposite directions, in the middle, from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman, and she was, the tombstones was probably, I don't know, 3 foot tall, whatever them old tombstones, real old area, like Civil War type stuff.
Right.
And she wasn't walking, she was just kind of floating. And she come out to the front of the fog as the fog kind of swirled on both sides of her. And, we're looking at each other like, because we didn't expect to see nothing. We was just going to sit up there for a few hours just telling them we went up there. And as she come out the fog, she was pretty much kind of the center of us. And my buddy, he must have started getting worried or moving around or something, but he stepped on a twig, or he heard a snap behind me, and about that time she looked straight over at us, and you could clearly make out her dress, and she was barefooted, and you could see her hair. It wasn't no color to it; it was just all pale, and as soon as she looked at it, she started raising her hand up. And when she turned to look, my buddy was already running. I could hear the brush cracking as he was going. And it was thick. It was, them old green briars, and it was some thick stuff. And just as her arm started up, that was all I need to see. And I bolted in behind him, and we sprinted all the way to I'd say it was about a mile. We went over top of the ridge and down in another holler and followed it down to the road and then to the railroad tracks and ran all the way back to his house. And the older kids would hang out and drink beer and stuff in the shed in behind his house. And we went busting in there, and couldn't hardly talk from running and being, freaked out. And, and they all looked, and they was like, "You saw her, didn't you?" And all we could do was just shake our heads,
Oh, gee whiz, man.
And that was all the ghost I ever wanted to see. And anytime anybody says that's haunted, I was like, okay, I believe you. I don't need no part of that.
Well, Connor, you've told me a couple of crazy stories about what's happened over in your property. You feel like you can say anything about that?
Well, I guess the initial part is the only thing I'm kind of leery of what started it all. You know what I mean? With I guess the first visitors, and all that would happen. But well, let's just say it was some kind of ABC agency that was on my property, and I encountered them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't quite sure what they wanted, or they wouldn't communicate with me. It was a messed up situation, and they were heavily armed, and I was heavily armed, and it's a wonder it didn't go bad right there. But after that, I had talked to DW, and he was like, what else you got going on your property? And I'm like, well, nothing really that I know of. And, you know, he asked me about, you know, is there any, like, trees laid over, odd stuff, you know, that I've noticed. And, you know, I'd noticed where some trees had been pushed over, like, across the old road beds behind my house. You know, it'd be like one tree over in the middle of the corner of the field pushed over. And, you know, where wind wouldn't really do it, you know what I mean? And it'd be a healthy tree. You know, I'd go up and look at the tree, and it wasn't no reason, it wouldn't rain where it got soft and fell over or nothing like that. And when the tree would be knocked over, it would be during a time, you know, because I'd noticed the tree, and before that we hadn't had any weather or nothing that I could say, yeah, that may have done it. Around the property, and I took my dog with me. I got a Arctic Thunder Wolf and German Shepherd mix.
His name's Jackson, isn't it?
Yeah, Jackson. And we were going around the, you know, it's a couple hundred acres behind me that a guy owns. I got permission to be on all that, and a couple hundred acres over to the other side, and, you know, nobody lives on none of it, so I kind of look out after it. You know, if I see anybody shouldn't be there, I run them off. Or, well, as we're going around, I noticed Jackson kind of stopped and sniffed, and he went right on over this particular tree, and he peed on it. And I'm kind of looking around for tracks or evidence of anybody being around after the initial thing I had going on, or just anything odd. Well, I'm kind of looking at the tree to see if, because he seemed a little interested in it when he's peeing on it, and I had to pee too, so I peed on the tree too. And he's on around the rest of the property and really didn't see anything other than a few odd trees had been pushed over, like on road beds and, you know, stuff like that. Well, a couple nights later is, you know, kind of when things started getting strange. I could hear footsteps running, and they was way faster than somebody could run. And it's pitch dark outside, and I'm in the woods. I live back in the woods. So, you know, it's that always odd. You know, I hear them going by the house really fast. And it happened a couple times, and I went out with the gun and looked around, didn't see nothing, and kind of quit. And then over the next few nights, it kind of started ramping up. And it'd be more, you know, running around and more. Well, they got to, I've got, I don't even know how many trucks, about 6 trucks sitting out there. And, you know, all the way kind of around the house. You picture a classic redneck. Okay, I got trucks on block. Yeah, you know. And as they run by, and I'm on the couch, you know, so I'm, you know, right there at the window. And but as they was running by, it was like somebody was taking the palm of their hand and smacking the side of my truck, and then around to the other truck, and then smacking my old van, and, you know, but what got me is how quick they was running, because I've got jumps that never were. You try to run through there in the daylight. And so I'm kind of baffled about all this, and I done talked to DW because he asked me about the first experience, if anything weird, to call him, and I was like, man, I don't know what's going on out here. And we wasn't quite sure what it was, you know, because I hadn't found any footprints. I got heavy orange clay and slate mix. You know, unless you're an elephant and it's raining, it ain't going to leave a footprint. And, you know, if it rains heavy for a while, or you got snow for a while, there's, you know, I sent Sean a couple pictures of some footprints I did.
Yeah, man, that was about the size of your hand, one I remember.
Yeah, So you can imagine what size my hand is, and about from the tip of my finger to my thumb, stretched out, was about what size the paw prints were. And that, and I got a big old German Shepherd wolf mix, you know what I mean? And when they make his paws look little, I know it's something. And that was kind of concerning, and I was losing sleep. And during this time, Jackson was like, all of a sudden he would go slam off and go to the back bedroom and barking and growling out the window. And then he would move, and he'd come in the living room and kind of look confused, like he was listening, and turn around, and he'd go to the other end. And it was several spells like that. And in the middle of the night, he'd done that. So we was both not getting very much sleep at this point. And so best I can figure is it was trying to bait me out the house from looking back on it, because the way it was going around, and it knew, smacking the trucks got a stir out of me, and I'd go get the gun and, go try to figure out what was going on, or, what it was. And so I was getting ready to go to bed during this one night, and I was getting ready to lay down, and all of a sudden Jackson starts growling and looking out towards the window in the back bed, in my bedroom, which kind of overlooks my driveway. And I hadn't heard nothing, it's been quiet that night, and I was kind of wore out anyway. I was ready to go to bed. And so I looked around, and the first flashlight I grabbed was one of them little LED, like single battery flashlights,
Yeah.
And I got a whole bunch of flashlights. That's just the one that was next to my bed. And I shined it out towards the driveway. And it's not got a very good beam on it, you know what I mean? One little AA lights. And I started looking around, and I got eye shine. So I'm looking, and I growed up in the woods hunting, and you know what I mean? It's got fur on its butt. I didn't mess with it. And I could see the eyes, and they were like a amber color, like on Jurassic Park when they hold that little light up. Hold the thing up and show you the mosquito in there.
Mm-hmm.
About that color, yellow looking, amber. And I could see it moving, and I could see another pair behind it that was further off in the woods, and they never moved. Well, as I'm watching it come out towards me. And I'm focused trying to figure out what it is at this point, because it got this little ass light, and I got it zoomed into a point. So, it ain't a very big circle shining at far. And it starts moving towards me. Well, the first thing it hit me is I ain't never had nothing wild come towards a light. You know what I mean? Maybe a deer every now and then that's just kind of wandering around or wander over to you, but nothing that comes to a light.
Right.
And so it starts coming in. It's really low at the ground. So I'm like, it's something small, but the eyes are too big to be something small. And it come out. And I had a big oak tree there, and I got a 74 Ford van, and I had it parked there next to the tree out the edge of the driveway. Well, as it come around out of the tree, it was getting closer to me and coming out the brush and everything where I could see more of it with the light. And when it turned to go around that tree, I could see the side of it. And at first I thought it was some kind of cat because the way it was moving. It was really low to the ground, and it was like you'd see a cougar or something, stalking something. How they'll get down real low, but they're moving pretty smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of looking, and the first thing I seen is it ain't a cat. The ears and the face and all this, and I could tell it looked, the face and the head and the body structure was more like a fox than anything. It had like a bigger nose, like a wider nose.
Yeah.
And the ears seemed a little bit large for it, or for what a fox would be that size. And it eased around that oak tree, and my van's parked right there, and it stopped. Well, I'm still like trying to figure this thing out, and it's about the color of a Siamese cat. You know how if you had to name a color, you'd say white,
Mm-hmm.
but it really ain't. It would like fade into darker towards its feet, and around its nose and face was a little bit darker, kind of like a Siamese cat would be. And it turned around and it stood up, and that's what really got me. And I'm looking at it like, whoa. And I'm trying to look at its face, because I got this little light, and it's standing up. Best way I can describe the way it stood up is like a prairie dog. Well, it stood up, and I went out there. I called DW after I said, like, man, have you even, because I'd never even heard of nothing that sounded like that. And at I don't know if at the time if he'd even heard anything like that, but there's a bunch or I've heard several stories since. Linda Godfrey, actually, I found a picture that she had on one of her sites when she was doing the interview and sent it to DW, and it was pretty close to what I seen.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it with this little light, and it's just standing there looking at me. And I looked at it, and I wasn't quite sure what to do, and everybody says, I'll get a picture or get the gun and shoot it and all that. I don't know if I'd say shock, but disbelief more than anything. Okay, it's standing in my yard.
Yeah.
And I looked at it for a little bit. I really couldn't think of what to do, basically. And I shut the light off. I set my shotgun up next to the bed, and I turned off all the lights, and I went to bed. And, I was like, whatever that is, there's at least two of them out there. I don't know how many of them's out there.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about how many was out there.
Well, I seen two sets of eyes, and that's the most I've seen, of them.
Yeah.
And the only other time I seen it was, I guess, a couple weeks later, because I had been putting up, I put up lights around, and and I'd move them from tree to tree to kind of mix things up. They had sensors and stuff on them,
Mm-hmm.
and I had them up maybe a week. I had 10 lights, around the house, and 9 of them come up missing.
So they just totally disappeared.
Gone. I never found them. The only one that I got was the one that the batteries was dead in. It wouldn't work.
No.
And I still got it right now. And but I was like, well, you know, I'm not going to, if they're going to come up missing, I'm not going to keep buying lights and stuff. And, you know, but
Well, that'd get expensive. They're still in crap, man.
Yeah, they was good LED motion sensor lights. You know, I done spent a good bit of money on them.
Oh, yeah.
And I done went, and after seeing that, the next day I went and bought a 7mm Magnum. You know, I was like, I got an AR and a Sega shotgun and some other stuff, but you know, I decided I just went and bought, and I deer hunted all my life. There's no need in a 7mm to really deer hunt with, not where I'm at.
Yeah.
Not anywhere on the East Coast. You know, 308 or 3030 or anything like that is plenty enough for deer hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a little hard to find because there ain't too many people's got, you know, it's not like I'm out west where they hunt antelope and, you know, stuff like that for, you know, a mile away and stuff.
All right.
And, but the next time I seen it, things had done kind of quieted down. You know, all the running around, and every now and then I'd hear a few footsteps. And I was basically just trying to ignore them at this point. I was like, well, I kind of know what's out there, and, you know, I don't know what to really do about it. Who you call, you know? And,
Yeah.
so I'm sitting here and I'm watching TV, and I got my tablet and I'm looking on Facebook. I buy and sell a lot of cars and stuff like that, so I'm always wheeling and dealing. So I'm sitting here and I'm kind of in between, during commercials, I kind of check and look through the marketplaces and all that. Well, as I'm doing that, I kind of catch a glimpse of something through my eye, in the corner of my eye, over at the living room window, and about the top of its nose up it was looking right in the window at me. Maybe 15 feet away.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a light on outside, but the living room light inside was shining out through the window because I ain't got curtains or nothing. I'm in the woods, and but I could see it pretty clear. And when I seen it that time, I took the gun and went out on the porch because I hadn't been going out on the porch, and never heard nothing. Never heard it leave. Never heard nothing around. And
well, they mess anything? They mess with anything else on your property during these nights that you had encounters with them, besides lights?
Well, one of them got hung up I got an old bicycle laying in the weeds, like a girl's 10-speed that some chick I was dating had, and it's, but it done fell over years ago, and the weeds done growed up through it, and one night during, I guess I heard running. Well, it just so happened I was real close to the back porch light. I was going to the bathroom, so I heard the running, and I just flipped the light on.
Mm-hmm. And
evidently it just turned and bolted towards the woods at that point. And when it did, it stepped down inside. It got hung up in the bicycle. And yeah, Jackson, I see you. And he's coming over to say hello. And but when it stepped down in the bicycle, it kind of yelped and a little bit of a howl, like yelp, as it and I could hear the weeds and stuff as it kind of yanked, and the bike kind of slammed around.
So
And I went out
this
there the
bike
next
was out
day.
in the weeds. You couldn't see it easy.
Yeah, you know how something grows down in the weeds, and you try to pull it out where you can move it a little bit, but you ain't gonna really yank it up out of there.
Yeah, I've seen
And-
those things.
And evidently it stepped and got hung up toe or foot or whatever. I couldn't find any fur or blood or, you know, nothing, no kind of evidence of that, but I could see where the bike, like you had reached down and you yanked it up about a foot and laid it back down, you know, where it had been kind of slid over and moved.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, you know, it hadn't really messed with nothing. Things got quiet there for a long time, and I hadn't heard nothing. And back, what has it been, about two or 3 months ago? Because I hadn't been going out since all this started. I just have no need to go out after dark.
All right.
You know, I just been staying in, and you know, just hadn't been messing around outside, and that's unusual because I growed up in the woods and camped and all that. But these people want to see these things. You know, once you see one, especially in your yard, you don't want to go out there because you don't know what it is, basically, or what they're thinking, or what they go. You know, I don't have no idea, and why they want to mess with you, or what they want it, or nothing. It's just it's a confusing thing, because like a bear, you can say, well, a bear does this, and a bear might get you, but it's very seldom. You know, most of the time they're sniffing around when getting you trash, and they see you, they're going to run.
Right.
I've had plenty of bear on my property, and, you know, I'd see a 200-pound bear, and, hey, what are you doing, you know, and he looks at you kind of funny, and then they run, you know. But something like these things, you know, you don't know what to think of them.
Oh, well, you said how much do you think those two? Well, you said you saw one right up close. How much would that thing weigh, you think?
Well, I don't know if these were smaller ones.
Yeah.
Because I went out there when I seen it next to my van. I went out there and took a tape measure and to about where it was standing. And because I got a bubble window on the side, so I had a pretty good reference point, and it's flat right there, and it was a little over 5 foot tall. And, you know, and it wasn't heavy built, or it was pretty slender. I didn't notice it being like real muscular, like you hear a lot of, you know, I guess reports or people tell, you know, about them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really muscular. It wasn't the fur. I've heard a lot of people say the fur, and this might be just like like a hound dog and a beagle. You know, both dogs, but they different dogs. But the fur looked real clean and soft, and it wasn't scary looking. I mean, if you looked at it, or if they was known and you seen one in the zoo, you'd probably think it was cute. You know, it wasn't like a werewolf Van Helsing looking thing.
All right.
It looked more like a fox. But when it was standing up, it wasn't like like a real fox would have just stood up, you know, all awkward looking, or, you know, trying to keep its balance or something like this. This thing just come up off the ground and stood up and was standing there comfortable. And it's just spooky looking.
I think if I remember correctly, that you mentioned they moved on all fours at one time, or at least one of them.
Yeah, and it was moving on all fours when I first seen it. When I went around a tree, it was down and it looked, the way the movement and all looked, had its belly like right at the ground, but it moved like a cat. You seen a regular house cat stalk a mouse, how they'll get down and move real fluent, but they're right on the ground. It's basically how it was moving. It was like right on the ground, but it was moving fairly fast and just smooth. And it didn't look uncomfortable being with his belly down to the ground.
Right.
And then things pretty much got quiet, and I hadn't had anything for a long time, and like I said, I hadn't been going out, and the way I kind of looked at it is I ain't messing with them. I hadn't tried to take any shots at them or nothing.
Yeah, that kind of shit outside your door. I'd kind of stay inside during the dark myself.
And they I think they know what a gun is, and I believe that they just decided I just wasn't worth messing with. You know, I mean, I don't know if they was more curious or what, but I think what started is when that tree must have been some kind of marker tree is the only thing I can figure. And when the dog peed on it, and then with a wolf, my wolf, you know, anything you do, you got to kind of show dominance over.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways they do it is when they pee, a bigger wolf will pee higher on the tree to show he's dominant. So when he peed on the tree, I just went over and peed it way up on the tree and just let it run down. And I think that may have been like a marker tree or a scent tree, or I don't know, because the way he acted funny towards it, because he kind of stopped and went way out of his way to that tree and kind of sniffed it a minute and then peed on it, you know. So I think that, and the other activity I had on the property, I don't know what happened. You know, I don't know if they was hunting them things or what was going on with that, but that may have been part of the reason they was curious with me, because they may have thought I was involved with whatever that was. And yeah, it was strange.
Oh yeah.
The only other time I really been out after dark, a few weeks ago, my neighbor down here was having a cookout, and I'd been down there early, and I'd planned on coming on back, and he was like, "Oh, you might as well stay." His wife can really cook too, so had steaks and all that, and I'm like, "Well, all right." So I got a 30 carbine pistol, and I got a headlamp and a flashlight in my vehicle anyway.
Right.
So I can make it to the back door, okay. And I come in and put my headlamp on, got the flashlight out, got my 30 carbine out. And it's a pistol, semi-automatic. And I pull right up to the back door and get out. And as I'm starting up the steps, I hear something. I hear bark and movement, and over in behind my house, you know, I had huge oak trees all the way around, and so I'm like, what's the deal here, you know? And as it jumped from one tree to the next tree, and it was way up in the trees. And these are big oak trees, like 80, 90 foot tall oak trees. And but you couldn't see, the lights I had wasn't quite big enough to really see anything in the tree. And the skyline where they come up, there was a little bit of a moon, so I could see like the treetops.
Mm-hmm.
And when it jumped from one tree to the other tree, I could see the tree shake. And for something to shake a tree that big, You know, it had to be pretty good size. And I could hear the bark, you know, the bark ripped and all when it hit the other tree and left the first tree. And I got up the next morning, and some loggers hang out down here at the local store, you know, when they're hauling loads to the mill and stuff. And I talked to them and found the first loggers I could find that was convenient to come cut trees, and I had them cut 68 log trees. And you know, I didn't really want to do that, but that was once I realized they could be in the trees, and you know, I was done with that. So I had them thin down all the big trees.
Now, did you ever take any of those weapons you explained and shot at these things, or shot up in the air or anything to try to scare them off?
Well, I fired a couple shots in the air one time, and that's about it. And that was during when I'd had like several nights in a row, and I was losing sleep, and you know, still so stressed out during the day I really couldn't sleep. And you know, I heard the footsteps, and I walked down on the porch and kind of cussed a little bit, and you know, told them to leave me the hell alone. And I had a slide fire on my Sega 12 with a 20 round mag, and I opened it up in the air, and it'll empty 20 rounds of double-aught buck pretty quick. And then I went on back in, and I didn't hear nothing else the rest of the night.
Didn't they mess with your TV antenna one night?
Nah, that when I seen them, when they left, or when that activity quit or really slowed down, the dog was acting different then, and he was like going up, and he wouldn't like okay, there's something out there, and he was like, but he wasn't going off.
Mm-hmm.
So, and more whining, and you know, I didn't understand what was going on with that, and I've been messing with my antenna out here, and I don't have cable or anything. You know, I got a pole with a digital antenna on the top, and to move it around to get different channels or better channels, you know, you got to go out there and slide it around. Well, I had it out there right next to the window, and I come in here, and I'd been messing with it during the day because I'd moved it, and then the next day I'd mess with it some more because it, you know, getting the channels right. And I'm sitting here watching TV, and there ain't no wind or nothing, and all of a sudden the TV signal just goes off. And usually, like when the wind's blowing or it moves or whatever, you know, it'll kind of go out a little bit, or you're getting it coming in and out. It's just like turned and went out. And I was like, well, okay, I'm done. I'm just going to go to bed, because I wasn't going out there messing with it. You know, I just didn't quit going outside at night. Well, the next day I go out there, and, you know, this goes on for a couple of nights. And I think I got it straightened away. And this is not one of them little light antenna poles. I work construction. I got a piece of scheduled pipe that's about 2-inch pipe. You know, it's like 30 foot long with my antenna on it. It's bright heavy, so the wind don't really blow it around or nothing. And I had marked on there where it was, so I, you know, figure out. And I'd put I was like, well, this thing's moving, and there ain't no way it should be moving. So I put a piece of reflector tape around it. and it goes up by that same window. About 13 feet from me, where I could see the reflector tape. Well, as I'm watching, all of a sudden the TV starts going out, and I immediately look over there, and I can see it slowly turning. And so I'm like, something's moving it. There ain't no. So I get up, and I try to look out the window with the flashlight, and I don't see anything, and mess around, look around the windows and all that. The only thing that I can think of is I don't believe them other things really shove over trees and make them kind of markings. From what I understand and talking to DW and all that, so I'm thinking there's some Bigfoot in the area, and that's what had actually pushed the trees over, and they must have come back in the area and kind of run them other things off. And the other weird thing that happened is when this other thing was going on, Jackson, he wouldn't even go outside, and he's a big, serious dog.
Yeah.
And, I'd let him out, and, even during the day, he didn't even hardly want to go off the porch far enough to use the bathroom, and then he wanted back in. And if I went out or was messing around outside or whatever, he'd be like kind of shoved right up against me watching. Well, he had quit doing that, and I could see him like kind of more relaxed and panting, and like he was pretty calm, and he started going up in the woods and all. Well, there was several times that he would just stop mid-stride. I'd be out there working on one of my trucks or whatever. And he'd stop, and I'd see him lift his head up like he heard something. So I'd kind of stop and look up there. And then he'd take off. And I'd holler, and, he wouldn't listen. He'd just go. Well, he'd be gone for 20 minutes, half an hour. And then he'd come back just like he was happy as he could be, like he done hung out with his best buddy. And, I don't have any explanation for that. I don't understand it. But
you got any neighbors he's cozy with?
Nah. Even my buddies come up here, he don't care for them. I mean, with that wolf in him, he don't care if you pet him, sweet talk him, nothing. When you show up, if it's somebody new, he wants to walk around them with his hair stood up, and he wants to sniff them real good, and then he's done with them. That's all. My one buddy, he's 4 years old, and my one buddy's been around him his whole life, and he'll get happy when he sees him, and he'll come up to him and let him pet him a little bit, and then he's done with him. He just don't really take to anybody else, or care to have anything to do with anybody else. So, but that was about the time where all activity around here quit. So I'm not. I did have a rock boat. Is the only other odd thing about that time that happened. When Jackson was doing that and everything, it was at night.
Mm-hmm.
And my neighbor had got a new gun, and it stopped here, and it was just a little after dark. And I heard him pull up out there, and I turned the porch light on, and he had parked right kind of at my back door anyway. So I went out there, and we was looking at his rifle on the hood of his truck, under the porch light. And we was talking, and all of a sudden, I'd say maybe a softball-sized rock or a little bigger, you could hear it skipping through the trees, like somebody from about halfway up the ridge had really slung it. And so we both turned, as you can hear it coming through there, and then you could hear it thud and roll. And he was like, "What's that?" I said, "It sounded like a big rock." "What did it sound like to you?" He said, "That's what it sounded like." He said, "What the hell?" I was like, "Man, I don't know, you know." And he stood there and looked, and I stood there and looked, and, you know, hey, you tell your neighbor that some weird shit out there without everybody thinking you're crazy.
Yeah.
And,
well, did you ever find that rock? Did you find that rock?
I went up there and looked, but it's rocks everywhere up through there. It's kind of, they used to mine it back years ago, so it's a lot of, you know, that wrapper they pulled out of the mines and kind of tossed everywhere. So it's big brownish looking rocks everywhere.
Okay. So tell me, you had all the trees cut down around your property. So did that stop the activity? How many?
Well, and I also I was going to Family Dollar and getting bleach.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And mixing it with ammonia.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of makes like a mustard gas. It's kind of chemically the same as mustard gas on a lower level. But I was mixing it in a garden sprayer and going around the property spraying trees. And I'd done that for a good while, and the people at the dollar store thought I was crazy, and they were buying gallons of bleach and ammonia. You know, spraying it, or they didn't know what I was doing with it, but, you know, like every week or so I was in there buying several gallons of each, and but I'd mix it up in there and spray it on the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that helped. It made me feel better anyway. I figured if they come around, because it burned my eyes. You know what I mean? It's strong.
Yeah, I've accidentally mixed that crap up.
Yeah, so if you have, it don't take much, and you can really smell it, and you know it's a pretty bad odor. So I've done that for a good while, and like I say, then things kind of calmed down, and you know I hadn't had too much going on. It was, well, the other night I told you about the deer.
Yeah, well, let's hear that story. Yeah, that's something new. Have you told DW this one? Yeah.
No, I hadn't talked to him and told him about that.
Oh, well, if you don't mind sharing that one, that's a short and sweet one, but that's a good one.
Like I say, it's been probably about 2 months since I've had anything that stood out, and I was up to about maybe midnight. I went to bed, and I'd say I was in bed probably an hour or two, then fell asleep. Well, all of a sudden, yeah, I hear, and I've hunted enough that I know exactly what a deer sounds like when it's, you know, in pain or caught up. And I grew up on a farm, so we've had to pull them out of barbed wire fences, and you know, they get hung in, you know, stuff, or when you shoot one. Well, it was out there in the corner of my driveway. I could hear one just start squalling, and it wakes me up, wakes the dog up. He's growling, looking out the window, and so like I say, I got my shotgun right there, and my pants and shoes. Well, it didn't take me very long to put my shoes and pants on, and what I had thought is maybe it got hung up in a car rim, or, you know, something laying out there. It didn't got its leg hung.
Yeah.
It was in pain.
Like that bicycle out there in the weeds.
Yeah, something, you know. And so I get my pants and stuff on, and by the time I get out on the porch, it's done moved up into the woods, and it's still squalling. And so I'm like, well, that's strange, and maybe a drug, whatever it's hung in up that far, and it's hung in the trees or some saplings or something like that, you know. So I'm kind of debating what to do, because I really don't want to go up there, but I don't like seeing anything suffer either. And all of a sudden, it just quit, and never made another noise, never heard a kicking or nothing moving or anything. So I'm going back to bed, and the next day I get up and I go up there, and Jackson's kind of acting a little bit funny in the way he's got his hair up, and he's sniffing around and moving kind of slow and staying with me. And I go up there and look around, and other than some leaves disturbed, I didn't find any blood. Well, that was that Sunday I told you it rained.
Yeah.
It poured down rain that night too. After that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, like torrential downpour after that. So I went up there anyway to see what I could see, and I couldn't find anything other than leaves were kind of messed up in a few places.
Wow, that is an impressive story. I can't. Does Jackson do any more crazy stuff in the middle of the night that's kind of got your attention, woke you up in the middle of the night or anything like that? Or have you had any sightings during the day about with these, I guess, fox, dog, whatever it is?
No, like I say, he's really smart, and he don't bark unless there's something out there. What the breed he is, they're not really barkers anyway. So he's pretty silent about stuff, and if he does bark, he definitely done seen something. And he don't just bark because he sees a squirrel out the window or something like that. If it's something that's not supposed to be there or whatever, is the only time he ever barks or does anything.
All right.
I mean, like where I'm at, my driveway's, I'd say a quarter mile long.
Mm-hmm.
And, like if somebody starts up my driveway or whatever, he'll bark, and let me know, but he don't just, he's pretty much a couple barks and starts pacing back and forth like, okay, we need to go check on this. Somebody's out there.
Oh yeah. That's the best kind of burglar alarm ever.
Yeah, and but yeah, it's like I say, I can't really explain none of that, and I wasn't trying to find an encounter or I never thought where I'm at there'd be anything like that roaming around.
Nah.
And
well, you want to talk about anything? Well, you mentioned before to me, I can't even remember. You told me we talked about this stuff so much. Do you want to talk anything about these men in black camo coming up on your property, or you want to leave that alone? That's up to you.
Well, I'll just give a gist of it. Like I say, the dog's usually pretty good on anything moving around or anything like that. So I'd seen him kind of up next to the window growling, and when I got up to go to the refrigerator out of my kitchen window towards the front of the house, I caught a glimpse of what looked like a LED light, like the little power on button or something. I could see like a light glow or something like that on.
Yeah.
Kind of down through the woods. And like I say, I buy and sell cars and stuff all the time, so I usually got something sitting next to the road or, way down to, like I say, my driveway's about a quarter mile long, so it's down at the end of the driveway. And, so I kind of pay attention down that way anyway. And so as soon as I seen something moving up through there, I was like, and I got like several race cars and a bunch of Harleys and some other stuff too. So I got, a bunch of stuff sitting around I was keeping an eye on. That's the reason I got the big dog.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, I got them. So I grabbed my AR and didn't turn on any lights or nothing, and went out the back door really easy, told the dog to shut up and go lay down, and eased out the door and went down there and used kind of my trucks for cover as I was moving down that way.
Mm-hmm.
And got down there to intercept them, and I had the light on the front of the AR just as they was coming around the brush at the old road bed. I was getting ready to turn the light on, and about the time I could hear a little bit of movement on both sides of me, and I was surrounded. And I'd say it was at least 3 on both sides of me. And it was a little bit of a moon, but not really much where you could see anything, just kind of make out the shapes and,
Yeah.
and a little bit of what it was, but I could immediately tell they were all dressed alike and, appeared to be like a military type uniforms. And it was big dudes. It wasn't little kids with playing a prank or nothing like that. They was just real big dudes in all black. So first thing it hit me was, okay, this is a SWAT team. I don't know what they want with me, or maybe they got the wrong house, or somebody got some information confused, or something.
Yeah, sounds like somebody was coming in to do a break in and arrest whoever was in the house kind of scenario.
Yeah, and so I immediately said, whoa, I'm not doing anything, and I grabbed the middle of the gun and I held it up over my head. And I was like, waiting on them just to run in and snatch me and snag the gun, and they didn't. So it was kind of a standoff at that point, and they're not saying anything. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what y'all want or what you're doing here, but, I'll answer any questions you got, or, whatever you need, I'll feel free to cooperate here. I ain't done nothing.
All right.
I said, you're on my property. Yeah, y'all on my property in the middle of the night. So, I got a right to have a gun to check that out. You know what I mean? I still hadn't done nothing, even with the gun. Well, nobody would answer. Nobody would, communicate with me. So then I got all this going through my head, trying to figure out, well, okay, what's wrong here? Why won't they answer? And then I thought, well, maybe they'd have figured out they got the wrong address, or maybe they didn't got permission yet to do whatever they're going to do, or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, y'all don't want to talk to me, I'm going back in the house. And so I kept the gun above my head and slowly walked back to the driveway and went on back in the house. And then, I was, wasn't quite sure what to do over all that. I'm sitting in the house now, and I got this big old dog. I know if they kick my door in for any kind of reason, he's going to nail the first one that comes through the door.
Right.
And you done seen it on the news too many times. Family dog shot, or they're shooting beagles and stuff. You know what I mean? What are they gonna do when
something that big gets hold of him or comes out of him anyway?
Yeah. He's gonna get a hold to him. He ain't gonna play with them. They kick in the door. So And then I was like, I won't be defending the dog. I'm liable to get shot because, you know, this is just going to go bad. They know I'm armed, you know. So I started watching out the window, and I could see a little bit of movement every now and then, and a little bit of light. And so I go back out and try to make contact with them because I could tell about where they was in the woods. They didn't move around to the backside. And I'm assuming they was still around front. I don't know. You know, I just know I could see them from where I was at, you know, in the living room out the back.
Now,
I went out there and...
Did you have your lights on in the house, or did you turn those things off?
Well, at that point, I had done turned on all the lights because I wanted them to clearly see me. And, you know what I mean, that I wasn't doing nothing and I'm just in the house.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know what else to do, you know. I didn't want them to me be sitting there with AR in my lap and, you know what I mean, okay, I'm waiting on you, kind of thing, because I didn't know what they wanted or why they was here or anything. And so I went back out and tried to make contact with them. That didn't work out. I came back in, and you know, they was moving around. I started getting mad because I was like, okay, if it's law, they gotta tell me what they're doing. You know what I mean? They have to identify themselves. And so then I decided I was going to try to run one of them down. And I turned off all the lights and snuck back out the door again and tried to, you know, I see where I've done that. I turned off all the lights and I eased around the house and waited. And I know my property pretty well, so I know you can't really get through this thick stuff running to get away from me. So I could probably head you off this way and all. And I couldn't catch them. You know, they kept running and, you know, trying to getting away basically.
Yeah.
And like I say, at one point, when I come back in the house, I turned off all the lights. It was like a long, like laser beam type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see it, and I thought it was brake lights off my truck at first, and sitting in the backyard. And because all of a sudden, like on the far end, I could see lights coming through the back window, and then I could tell it was moving. Well, as it kind of went by, I didn't turn off all the lights, and I'm laying on the couch now because I don't know what to do. You know, who you call? Okay, I'm already assuming it's law enforcement, so you call police and tell them, look, your guys is out here, and, you know, I didn't know what to do. And, but I seen it's kind of like a scanner, as best I can describe it. It went down, and when it got to where I was, it was slowed down and went by, and then stopped and went by again, and then went by one more time and went on down the rest of the house. And so you know, I'm laying here like, what's up now? You know, what is that? And I've never heard of nothing like that. And so at that point, I made one more attempt to try to communicate or run them down, and it was two of them around on the front side. And I went to run them down, and because you go through like my house, and then there's a big patch of woods, and then there's a big field, and it runs all the way down to the main road. There's nothing but fields. There's nothing to get behind. There's nowhere to go. So I thought, well, okay, I'll try to run them down in that field. And so when they cleared the wood line and got into the field, they kind of veered to the left and towards my neighbor's driveway, which is a good ways away, but it's, you know, closer on that end. And Crown Victoria come flying in. And they both jumped in that Crown Victoria and gone. And even the dude driving was all in black. Because I could see when the interior light turned on when they opened the door.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see then that they were all in black and in a military looking outfits anyway. and they left out of there. And
what kind of weapons do these guys have on them that did you make out what they were?
Nah, I really couldn't make out what kind of weapons they had. It appeared like they was carrying something, but I never really, and it's pretty dark, you know what I mean? And you know, even they never got around my porch lights anywhere near it where I could see any light off of my porch lights. And I kept turning them off so I could sneak out and try to confront one of them, you know, and figure out what was going on. Because at that point, it was like, well, if they wanted to shoot me, if it was somebody wanted to do that, they already had me. You know, they could have shot me at any point, either through the window or when they had me surrounded the first time. You know, I mean, they had me. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. And so I didn't come to the conclusion that I didn't feel like I was in danger from them because they didn't have too many opportunities to do something if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so it was just and the next morning when I got up, I went to the state police office is the first place I went. And I went in there and spoke to the state police, the chief of police for the state troopers.
Yeah.
And, you know, told him, and I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on, but I've got armed people on my property in the middle of the night, and they won't identify themselves. And he was like, well, that's not procedure, or, you know, I was like, well, I understand, but I didn't know if something went wrong, and, you know, they didn't want to tell me they was there because they had the wrong place, or, you know, something like that. And he's like, well, I'm not allowed to divulge any information on SWAT team activity or whatever, but we coordinate with the state and the government and, you know, all the agencies. You know, they let them know if they're going to be in an area. So he gets on his computer and he's typing away and he's looking and all. And he's like, well, like I say, I cannot tell you if we've got any activity in any area. You know, I can't tell you that. He said, that being said, he said, there's no, I looked you up and there's nothing that you're involved with, or your name ain't on any of our radar. And I will tell you that we do not have anything going on in that area, and haven't had anything going on in that area, and have no plans on having anything in that area. Because I'm in the middle of nowhere, you know, basically.
Yeah.
So I thanked him, and I was still kind of mad over the whole situation. I'd done been up all night, and I told him, I said, well, look, you tell your guys the next one that won't answer me, I'm shooting. I said, you know, and he's like, you can't do that. I was like, look, I'm telling you, I'm in fear for my life at this point. I've got armed people that surrounded me and harassed me, you know, all night long. I said, I'm not putting up with this. I said, if it is somebody that you can talk to or whatever, I'm just telling you. I said, so if something happens in the future, you know, I'm pretty much making a statement now of where I'm at. And, you know, and he kind of looked at me and gave me a stern talking to a little bit about, no, you can't just shoot somebody because they're on your property. And I'm like, well, okay, but that's what I'm going to do. And I left there, and
So-
I drove to the.
Well, let me ask
county.
one. Let me before you get too far. You hadn't slept all night that night, so this activity ended.
night.
Oh.
It was close to daylight when, and I don't know exactly when they left. I was just so wore out and couldn't do nothing. You know, what do you do? I mean, I done tried to chase them. I done tried to talk to them. I didn't know who I could call. You know,
Dang.
I didn't know what to do over all this.
All right.
And
Well, what'd you
I
do
left
after
the
you
state
got?
troopers on.
Yeah. And what'd you do after you get after?
I drove straight to the county sheriff's department, and I had to wait because they were in a meeting and all that. So I went in and spoke to the police chief and the captain both, and gave them the same spiel. And I was still kind of mad over it, and told them I just left the state trooper's office, and I'm just letting you know because I don't want any of the. I don't be responsible for shooting a deputy or, you know what I mean? I've got no ill will towards anyone, but I didn't know who it was, and or the reasons or what was going on, and I just knew that I ain't done nothing.
All right.
And so, as near as I can, or we're talking with DW and all,
Mm-hmm.
that for some reason they had some interaction with them things. And I don't know if it was a Bigfoot group, or I don't know if it was I don't even know what to call them other things. But, something, and then that's when the activity started, was immediately after that. So it was some kind of connection there.
Oh, so
I don't know if
these men in black showed up before the activity of the foxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure if maybe they had killed a couple of the adults, and there was a couple smaller ones that was around, and I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances or what, I don't know. Not a lot of it makes sense. I tried to, think about everything logically and why and what's up and why here and why they wanted to mess with me. And, there's a lot of unanswered questions still.
Right. Now, your area where you're at, do you have any Bigfoot sightings or anything like that? Is it a common place to hear these things around there?
No, it's not common, but there has been some stories on the news from around the area of sightings, and that's not, very far from me at all. I'd say an hour, 30 minutes to an hour to 3 different sightings from my house.
Okay. Oh, wow. I don't know what. So the last little bit was just a few days ago, right after, was it last Sunday night when this thing happened with the deer incident?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it'd been like a couple months since before then. But like I say, I basically just been ignoring them. I know it's not somebody walking because you can hear the footsteps. And I got oak trees, or had oak trees all the way around me, so thick leaves, you can hear footsteps and make them out pretty good, even at a distance. And, you can tell the stride of, somebody walking, and these are more of a chop, 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 chop kind of walk than more of a where somebody would be walking, a person.
Yeah, well, didn't you tell me that your property around your home and stuff was pretty grew up with a lot of weeds and briar patches and stuff?
Yeah, I work construction, and I was gone a whole lot. Sometimes I'd be gone a year on a job, or I've had this place close to about 20 some years, and but a lot of times, you know, like I moved in with this chick for a couple of years, and you know, I'd go hit a job and be gone for a year on it, and 6 months here and back home for a little bit. So the property is really set a lot, you know, dormant with nobody around.
All right.
And you know, and I'm here kind of sporadically, you know, is the way it's been in the past. And I've had I got a couple bulging discs and a pinched nerve, so I've been off for a while. So I've been pretty much here for the last, I'd say, close to 2 years. I've been pretty much around the house.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, so you know, I don't know if they had come around before and I just hadn't been around, or what. But the ridge I'm on, at the very end of it, is an old Indian burial ground. The ridge probably runs about 5 miles, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's big fields on one side, and then the other side it's big company plants corn there, so it's a big industrial kind of cornfields kind of deal.
No, like for alcohol and stuff for that, and for the alcohol for ethanol. That's what I'm trying to.
Maybe, I'm not sure exactly what they use it for. But it runs all the way to the river,
mm-hmm.
and then kind of if you come off of that ridge that's in behind my house, it points right into that old Indian burial ground and stuff.
Oh.
And like I say, in all the cornfields, there's piles of deer that cross, and there's a couple smaller, like wooded areas and all that, but the main cover was this big ridge. So I get a lot of bears come down through here because they'll come up that ridge,
right,
to get cover from feeding, and they'll come down the old logging roads. And one of the old logging roads comes right into my back door. And there's another one there's several more that's close, that come down onto my property. But there's one that comes right into my back door. So if anything's traveling, they usually kind of hit them old logging roads, and it's probably a mining road from way back in. Exactly, probably what that is. And you know, things just kind of naturally travel down through it and end up right pretty much in my backyard. Because I've had 4 bear killed right at the end of my big bear killed right at the end of my driveway, and a couple cubs. They were coming out of my driveway.
Okay, so where your yard is all growed up, and you're telling me about these fox, dogmen, whatever you want to call them, running through your yard and slapping the side of your van and stuff. Yeah, is that easy to do No,
it wouldn't be easy to do in the daylight. Because you know, I got stuff sitting around, and like I say, where I was gone, I'd get some construction materials or whatever they give you on the job, and you know, I'd be working on this truck and have another set of rims laying next to it, and you know, the phone would ring, and I'd go to this job, and it just set, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I've been pretty much single. You know, I had one chick live with me for a while. She used to get after me about the yard, but she didn't last long. But you know, the other ones, like I moved in with this chick for like 5 years, and you know, lived in her house, and her yard was nice and clean and all, and I kept all my junk over here.
Yeah, so it's not easy. It's not easy to run through your yard during the daylight because it's all growed up, and you got a lot of construction and vehicle parts and pieces and vehicles itself, right?
Yeah, I got all kinds of stuff. Like I say, I still got 6 trucks right now. And I got 5 Harleys. I got dune buggies, jet skis, 4-wheelers. I mean, it's stuff sitting everywhere.
It sounds like you got a little used car parking lot going on there.
Yeah, like I say, I'm making a lot of money working construction. If I come back and I wanted to buy it, I had the money to buy it. And being single, I had nobody tell me I couldn't buy it. So
there you go.
The dog don't care. He just gets something extra he can pee on.
Oh, jeez, man. So how are you still doing the that Clorox and mix that you were telling us about? Are you still spraying that around your property?
Well, I kind of slacked off on that. Other than getting expensive and being a pain, you know, in the activity, you know, pretty much just gradually just went away until, like I say, every now and then I'll have something happen, but it was mainly at night. I didn't really have any. Every now and then during the day, I could hear something run on the ridge, but, you know, with all that other stuff, I wasn't sure if it was just something running or if I'm hearing stuff. Or, well, I knew I heard it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what it is at a distance up further on the ridge. But, you know, the dog calmed down, and I kind of used him as a gauge because, you know, just the way he acted, I knew something was definitely wrong. You know, he hadn't gone off like that, and he just wouldn't quit barking. And, you know.
Daggum. Yeah, man, I could. Well, when I had my dog, he knew, according to my girlfriend at the time, he knew when I was coming home 15, 20 minutes before I got in through the door. So anybody knows, anybody knows about a dog, they can definitely sense things around the house and around the property.
He knows my truck, and like I say, the power guys come up here not long ago to change out the meter box, and I don't ever lock my back door because I got the big dog in the house, and he knows how to open the door. He just grab a doorknob and open it up and go outside. And,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and when he wants to come back in, he'll shut the door behind him.
Well, okay, there. I didn't know he was that smart.
Oh, yeah, he's real smart. But the power guys was up here going to change the meter out, and the meter's like right behind my house.
Mm-hmm.
And they got out the truck and all, and he opened up the door and run them back up in the truck, and they called me, and they was like, "Is this a dog bite?" Well, they told me who they was. It was from a power company. And I was like, he's in the house. They're like, no, he ain't. You know, he come after us and run something in the truck, and he's sitting here right now growling at us. And I was on the way back from the store. I went to get me a sandwich. And so I'll be there in a couple minutes. And they said when I started up the driveway, his ears went up, and he looked down, and he couldn't see me at that point. And he went back up in, and he shut the door behind him. And they was sitting in the truck laughing because they was pulling around far enough that they could actually see him go in the house and grab a door and shut it behind him.
Right.
And so I was like, so I opened up the door, and he's sitting there like, nah, I ain't doing nothing. I've been in the house. And I chewed him out a little bit. And, took him outside and let him meet the fire people, and I had them make extra anytime they were in the area. I had them call me and drive up, and so they got he knows their truck now, and he won't bother them now.
Right. Well,
but
well, Connor, I appreciate you, buddy, calling in and telling that story. That, folks, if you ever heard anything that has to do with a Dogman or cryptid story, this story that Connor shared with us tonight, folks, you ain't going to hear any better. You just definitely haven't. He's told me a little bit more, but he's pretty much nailed it with the stories that he's told. And he's never varied from what he's told me. I don't think you've even added anything new other than a couple nights ago when that deer story happened. But wow.
Yeah, that just happened.
Yeah, that just happened.
Yeah.
Well,
like I say, it is what it is. I can't really explain it, and like I say, these people want to see these things. There's some people in the chat, I'd love to see one and all that. Well, it's not like going out and seeing anything you're looking for, like a bear or whatever, and because it's something that and even if you have a good encounter and see one, your mind just don't process it right because you don't know what it is and don't know, how to really take it. And yeah, I normally don't have no nightmares or anything like that, but I did over this and it wasn't the fact that I know people's had a lot worse interactions and stuff going on, but just the stuff I've had with them, it's just really unnerving. And, it's just, I don't know what to tell somebody. And if you was to run across something like a Van Helsing one, I don't know how you would. I just know seeing something that's 5 foot tall and fairly cute will mess you up when you don't know what it is.
So you think? So you definitely think there is bigger versions of that thing out there in your woods at that time?
I don't know. Like I say, all I can tell you is what I saw.
Yeah.
And as far as, like I say, I don't know if they were young ones. I don't know if it was full size. I really couldn't answer that.
Well, I don't know how much time you got left to talk or anything, but I do remember you telling me that you heard some crazy like chatter or something that wasn't anything that you heard.
That one time I heard lightly, it was some mumbling and the clicking noises, like it sounded like it was making it with their mouth.
Right.
And that was about the time that these things quit coming around, and I felt like something else might have been them moved in, just from the way the dog was acting, and the feeling I had. I guess basically it just felt different, But I was coming out the bathroom near my back door, and I heard a limb snap, like somebody had stepped on a good-sized limb and broke it. And so I didn't turn on the light or anything. I just kind of was trying to listen through the door. And I heard, and it was really hard to hear, but I could hear like a drunk samurai or a drunk Chinese talking, mumbling fast. It was about of a few, a little bit. And then it was like, and the other noise was over from it, and it was a clicking type noise, like you was making a clicking noise with your mouth or something.
Yeah.
And then the other one made a grunt, and then I didn't hear nothing else. So I don't know really what the hell
did it sound like? Did it sound human at all? What little bit that you did hear, other than the grunts and the clicking?
It was faster, like when people talk, they talk at a pace. This was like like a faster, kind of like jumbling.
Oh, okay.
Together and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were trying to be quiet too. They wouldn't really like being loud, communicating. It's like you was hunkered down, kind of whisper to your buddy over a few feet from you.
Oh,
You're not making very much noise, but like I say, I'm up here in the woods. It's dead quiet. There ain't no noises.
So what did Jackson, your dog, say? Did the dog do anything with it, or did he act like he heard these noises or anything?
Well, he come up there and he was standing at the door and he was turning his head sideways and had his ears up and he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and and I done motion for him to be quiet. And so he's looking and ain't sure what's going on, and I'm looking and you can see him kind of leaning his head forward, trying to listen better, and then didn't hear nothing else after that. So,
dang, man.
You know,
wow. I don't know if I want to encounter something like that. That will probably get me all messed up and having nightmares myself. Jeez.
And like I say, and I've never seen nothing else with them. That other one twice, and so I'm not sure. And like I say, I've looked for footprints and all, but it's hard orange clay with slate mixed with slate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like concrete most of the time.
Yeah,
you can't dig in it with a shovel.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Up until it gets, you have almost like a flood, and then it'll turn into something you lose your shoe in.
Yep, and so I'm not quite sure
what the heck's going on. Wow. Anybody around your house, your neighbors or anybody at all, say they've seen anything like that? Those foxes?
The only the guy that owns all the property behind me, I went and asked him about it, and I was like, have you seen anything you ain't sure what it was, or because I know he's got a few game cameras set up there, and he's like, nah, I ain't really never caught anything on the game cameras. He said, I've had some people knock them down and mess with them, so I know somebody's in there trespassing. So he's had his game cameras messed with.
All right.
And, that could be anything. And, but he had one guy come in there to hunt his property one time. It was a friend of his, wanted to come up for the hunting season. And he said he seen some large wolves, is how he described them. And it scared him bad enough that he's supposed to stay all week. It's there's a trailer that sits up on the mountain, and they still have power and stuff to it, but nobody lives in there or anything. But they kind of use it for a camp or when he comes in to check on the property kind of thing.
All right.
And he was supposed to stay all week, and it shook him up bad enough that he took all his stuff and left after seeing them. And evidently he's several hours drive, away from here. And, he said he won't come back. So I don't really know exactly what he saw. Just he told the landowner that there was large wolves. That's what he said.
That was so he cut a week-long stay to a day or two after seeing
He
that?
left the first day.
Oh, he left.
So
God.
When that happened the first morning, about daylight. It wasn't even quite daylight on the first morning.
So more or less, he was out just scouting and stuff. More or less.
Well, they had looked. He'd come in the day before, and they had kind of walked down the road, and he had showed him where to drop off and on a stand. So they had dinner at night and drank a few beers and, ready for hunting the next morning. So before daylight, they went down the road together, and he made sure he pointed out to where he needed to go down over the ridge. It was over on my side of the ridge. And he dropped over there. I'm not sure how far he dropped off, a little ways to get to where the stand or spot he was going to set on it. And and evidently about daybreak is when he seen what he saw, and immediately went back. And it was about I guess lunchtime before the landowner quit hunting and came on back out for lunch.
Right.
And the dude already had all his stuff packed in the truck and everything, and told him, hey man, I seen some big wolves. And he's like, what? There ain't no big wolves around here, and we got coyotes. And he's like, no, I seen coyotes, and it wasn't no coyote, and I'm done. I ain't hunting up here, and told him not to hunt up there no more.
Holy cow, man. Wow. Well, Connor, I appreciate you calling in, buddy. I think I might have overstayed my welcome with having you on the phone so long, man. I appreciate you.
All right, well, I appreciate talking to you.
I appreciate you getting on here, man.
Good work.
Well, with people like you, man, yeah, it's hard to beat a story like that, especially with a cryptid story like you've got, Connor. Wow. Yeah, indeed. Wow. This is Sean Graham with Chasing the Truth, and you just listened to an hour and 3/4 of a testimony from a Dogman experiencer, if you can call whatever Connor was looking at and experiencing. Now, this whole episode that he just went through, an hour and 3/4, took almost a year, if not a little bit more, for him to accumulate all this experience. So, like I said, this is DW's basis of a lot of his Dogman stories that he's come up with. Not all of them, but a lot of the really good ones, which he has a lot more over at imdarkwaters.com right now. So go over there and subscribe today. Also, if you go over there, you can get on the email alert system that Dark Waters come up with, that you can become part of the immersive entertainment that Chasing the Truth is evolving into, along with Dark Waters in total. For Dark Waters Entertainment, you can go over there, get free live updates when Chasing the Truth comes on, or any other radio show that comes on Dark Waters radio channel. You'll get free updates for that and be able to get involved with the Dark Waters radio family there. So go to imdarkwaters.com today. Now, folks, this is Sean Graham with Chasing the Truth on the Dark Waters radio channel, on the Paranormal Radio app, and TalkStreamLive.com. So, folks, join me next week, and let's chase the truth.
We've done some testing to determine if it is a synthesizer or not.
Just starting to come at me like they
Very
want to
difficult
shred
to
me
do
to
with
pieces.
this is what it actually looks like.
And they start, one tried to grab me.
What do we think that is?
That was my baseball glove.
Communication?
No, my old one.
What?
No worse than me.